You guys saw the title. I'm going to show you what videos, websites I visited, and how I studied to pass the Part 107 exam with the 92%. So I'm not going to be teaching anything. I'm going to have all the links down below to the resources I used. I will give some tips here and there, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The first thing I want to say is you don't need any courses whatsoever, any paid courses, to pass this exam. I saw a ton of courses online, some were like $100, $200. You don't need that. The test itself is already like $170. I paid $175. If you take it at a PSI owned testing center, I think it's around $100. But using free resources, you should have no issues passing this. The main resources I used were 2 YouTube videos. One was from Altitude University, and the other is Tony Northrup's video. Both are around like an hour and a half long. They're both pretty similar videos that go over a little bit of everything as far as the knowledge needed to pass the exam. And so I watched both of those videos. I took notes of anything that I was confused about or I didn't really understand. Sectionals was a big one, and so you need to learn how to read sectionals. Although there is going to be a chart legend in the testing supplement, you still need to learn how to read that pretty efficiently. Because for me, my test personally, I would say around 10 questions were just based on reading sectionals, finding locations, knowing symbols. Some of that can be referred to from the legend, but others you just have to know before going into the exam. So after I watched those 2 YouTube videos and took some notes, I went online I just searched free FAA practice exam, and the first one that came up was actually a website named Free FAA Practice Exam. So I did that. I got like a 73 and then I got a 60. Some of the questions on there aren't even related to aviation in general, so that was I wouldn't recommend it, but it did give you the answers to everything after, and so you can use that to refresh your memory and figure out what you do or don't know. I used that. I used a Quizlet, and then I used my notes. I still was confused on sectionals, so the next day, and I only studied for about 3 days. That was just the time between my exam when I scheduled, so I had 3 days, and that was that. These are topics you need to be educated on in order to do well in the exam. First one is METAR and TAF reports. That's a given. There is a website that can decode reports for you. If you are a bit confused, you can always use that website and go one by one on the list and see what everything means separately. There are tons of different videos on that on YouTube as well. Next thing you need to know is classes of airspace, controlled, uncontrolled territory, surface, ceiling, shelves. Next thing you need to know is high and low density air, how altitude is affected by density, temperature, humidity, all that stuff. You need to be able to read sectionals, longitude and latitude. You need to have good, I'd say, direction of how a runway is. You need to know runways, true and magnetic, north, and the difference between them. And even though this exam is to fly a drone, you have to know stuff about airplanes, like the center of gravity, how airplanes are affected in certain maneuvers, and stuff like that. That's pretty basic stuff. If you don't know anything about airplanes, you can read the question slowly and pick it apart and understand. There's only 3 choices, and if you put the obvious choice out, then you have a 50-50 chance right there. What else? night flying. I don't think I had maybe one question about night flying. It was about what light to use. Once again, most of these are pretty obvious for the most part, at least they were for me, but I also used all the free resources I could. Damages, you need to know how much before you need to report it to the FAA, and when you have to report anything to the FAA. Another thing is remote piloting command. They use that term a lot on the test, and usually that's the answer to a lot of questions, unless they try to trick you, which some questions on the test are trick questions, I will admit. Another is airspace operations, so restricted or controlled or MOA airspace, when you can and can't fly, when you won't be able to fly, when you need ATC approval to fly, a lot of stuff like that. The weather and the stages, so cloud, fog, how many types of clouds are there, how are clouds measured, which I think is like height of the cloud. Really weird questions that aren't really related to the aircraft, but once again, they're there. AGL versus MSL, and when to use AGL or when to use MSL. That can help you get the answer to the question, just off knowing if two are MSL and one is AGL. If you know it's AGL, then there you go. Another topic is flying near people or structures, and that one is gone over pretty well in Altitude University's video. I'm going to have all the resources I use linked down below, and the PDF for the FAA testing supplement, which also you need to go over, in my opinion, before you get to the testing exam, because if you don't go over that, you're kind of going to be wasting time going through stuff that you could have looked at the night before. So that's just my opinion. I would just give it a once over, twice over, read the legend in detail and make sure you understand the legend. The legend itself can help you answer multiple questions on the test. So there's that. Common rules to register, like 55 pounds, under 0.55, do you need to register for public or commercial use? Common questions like that. Remote ID is something that wasn't covered in any of the stuff I watched, because remote ID is pretty recent, and I took this test December 20th of 2023. Remote ID was put into place a couple of months ago, I believe, so that's a whole new league of stuff, but I only had one question on it. Pilot Institute has a good remote ID video I'll link, but they don't go into depth. They just kind of skim over it. The next thing you want to know is your acronyms, like PAVE, CARE, and I'm Safe, what they mean and what they stand for, because you might get a couple questions on those, because I did. And the next thing is attitudes. So I believe there are 3 N's, like macho, impulsivity, and something else, and you basically have to be able to discern the difference between these and the antidote to these attitudes that careless pilots will have. This is in the FAA study guide. I just didn't want to touch that. I learned better watching other people and taking notes, and that worked for me. So to fully recap, if I was taking this test again, I would watch the 2 main videos. I would do a couple practice tests online, see where I stand, see what I'm comfortable with, what I don't understand and what I do. Then I would go back on YouTube and search on those topics, whether that be sectionals or longitude and latitude or weather conditions or METAR or TAF reports, whatever it be. I would learn more, and then I would go back to test again and hopefully see that my testing percentage has improved. The last couple things are just on the test itself, and one is, like I said, take those notes with you, arrive half an hour earlier or so, and just kind of scan over everything so you can have it in your short-term memory before you go test. And the last thing is to take your time, because you have 2 hours, 60 questions. There's no rush. Maybe 10 or 15 of those questions you have to use the legend for, so the rest of them are kind of going to be in your head already, like you're going to know them or you're not going to. And if you get confused between 2 answers, just read the question several times, even out loud if you have to, just to make sure it's not like a trick question, because that happened with a couple of the questions I had. I don't know what I got wrong, but I scored a 92, passing as a 70, so to me that's a win. If you have any questions, just put them down below in the comments. I'll have the links for everything in the comments. And yeah, good luck on your test.